Welcome to the Orchid Advisors Compliance Training Series, Export Controls, ITAR Registration. Let's begin the process of peeling back the onion and examine each major part of the ITAR, starting with the registration requirement and process. The Arms Export Control Act requires all U.S. persons who engage in the business of manufacturing, exporting, temporarily importing or brokering defense articles or defense services to register with the State Department. In addition, freight forwarders under the Foreign Military Sales Program must also register with the State Department. The State Department office in charge of implementing the registration requirements is DDTC, and the relevant sections in the ITAR are in Part 122 for registration of manufacturers and exporters, and Part 129 for brokers. A couple of cautionary notes are necessary to ensure the scope of the registration requirement is clear. 1. Under the ITAR, the registration requirement is triggered with only one instance of manufacturing, exporting, temporarily importing or brokering a defense article or furnishing a defense service. 2. A manufacturer of a defense article must register under the ITAR, even if the manufacturer does not engage in exporting. 3. Registration does not confer any export rights or privileges, but registration is generally a precondition to obtain any license or other approval required under the ITAR. There is a very limited list of U.S. persons who are exempt from the ITAR registration requirements. These are listed in ITAR 122.1. Almost all firearms and ammunition are classified as defense articles under categories 1, 2, and 3 of the U.S. munitions list. The only exceptions to this classification are non-combat shotguns with barrels 18 inches or longer. Consequently, most firearm and ammunition manufacturers must register with DDTC even if they do not engage in exporting or temporarily importing defense articles or providing defense services. In addition, because all parts and components to firearms and ammunition listed on the U.S. munitions list are defense articles, manufacturers of those parts and components must also be registered with DDTC, even if they do not engage in any export activity. This is an important compliance point for manufacturers and their vendors, and a common pitfall for those who believe ITAR registration is required only when one participates in international sales. That is, of course, not true. Registration Submission. DDTC has recently changed the registration process to allow electronic submissions of the registration package, including all support documentation and payment of registration fees. Although the electronic submission is currently elective, beginning January 1, 2014, DDTC will accept only electronic submissions. A complete registration package consists of the following 4 items. 1. A complete unsigned Form DS-2032 registration statement. 2. A complete signed Form DS-2032 registration statement. 3. Supporting documentation to show the ability to engage in business, such as articles of incorporation, a business license, articles of organization, or a partnership agreement. Other supporting documentation includes electronic payment confirmation and an annual brokering report, if applicable. 4. The final item is the registration fee, which is paid electronically as well. The central part of any ITAR registration application package is the Form DS-2032, Statement of Registration. DDTC has just published its newest version of the form, and it can be downloaded at DDTC's website, pmddtc.state.gov. Please note that this new version 4 must be used for all new registrations and renewals, as DDTC will no longer accept older versions. Pursuant to DDTC's recently published interim final rule amending the ITAR brokering provisions, only one registration statement is needed to register as a manufacturer or exporter and as a broker. Many of you watching this will remember when companies who engaged in both manufacturing and exporting and brokering had to complete 2 separate registration statements. The good news is this is no longer the case, which also means registrants will save money because they no longer have to pay a separate broker registration fee. In addition, brokers can now report brokering activity for the previous year on the registration statement, as opposed to having to file a separate report each January. This new form reflects the many changes that DDTC has implemented in connection with export control reform, including the revised U.S. munitions list. Firearms remain subject to State Department jurisdiction. A block for disclosing foreign subsidiaries owned or otherwise controlled by the registrant, and a block for disclosing intermediate and ultimate ownership of the registrant. The Form DS-2032 also asks for a third-party point of contact and an email address to which DDTC may send all registration-related correspondence. This email address must be monitored, as this is where DDTC will send registration confirmations and renewal notices. We will discuss renewal shortly. Please note that subsidiaries may not register separately. Registration by the parent satisfies the registration requirement for all subsidiaries engaged in the business of manufacturing, exporting, or brokering defense articles or defense services, as long as the subsidiaries are properly identified on the DS-2032 registration statement. The registration fee must be included with the Form DS-2032. New registrants are charged $2,250, regardless of whether they are registering as a manufacturer, exporter, or broker. Registration, submission. There is a specific process for submitting the registration packet electronically to DDTC. First, complete and save the DS-2032 registration statement as a PDF file without a signature. Once the form is saved, print, sign, and scan the signed form so that you have both a signed copy and an unsigned copy. The registration statement must be signed by a senior officer whom the intended registrant has empowered to sign such documents. The next step is to gather all the necessary support documentation and save each as a separate, individual file. These will be uploaded to the electronic submission packet. Once everything is gathered, access DTAS online through DDTC's website at pmddtc.state.gov/registration. DDTC registration, complete letters. Once an entity has properly registered with DDTC, DDTC will send notification to the email address provided in Block 12 of the registration statement, confirming that the registration is complete. This notification will include a unique registration code consisting of a letter prefix, M, assigned to a manufacturer and/or exporter, or K, assigned to a broker, followed by 4 or 5 digits. For example, K1234 or M12345. Caution: the code is proprietary to the registrant and should be handled as such. Company registration code should not be posted online or given out freely to the public. The empowered official. The ITAR requires all registrants to designate an employee, not a third-party consultant, contractor, or counsel, as an empowered official, or EO. Pursuant to ITAR 120.25, the empowered official must meet the following requirements. 1. Must be a U.S. person. 2. Directly employed by the registrant or subsidiary in a position having authority for policy or management within the organization. 3. Legally empowered in writing by the registrant to sign license applications and other requests for approval on behalf of the applicant. 4. Who understands the provisions and requirements of the export control statutes and regulations, including the criminal and civil liability and administrative penalties for violation. 5. The EO must have the independent authority to inquire into any aspect of a proposed export or temporary import activity, verify the legality and accuracy of any application submitted to DDTC, and also be able to refuse to sign any license application or request for approval without prejudice or adverse recourse. Renewals. ITAR registrations must be renewed annually, along with the appropriate fee. Usually, DDTC will send renewal notices to the registrant approximately 60 days prior to expiration of the current registration. DDTC sends these notices only to the email address included on the DS-2032. Therefore, it is important to keep DDTC apprised of any changes to the email address, as well as any other changes to the registration statement. DDTC no longer sends registration renewals through the mail. To avoid a lapse in registration, it is critical to submit the Form DS-2032 to renew the registration at least 30 days, but not earlier than 60 days prior to the expiration date. Please note, it is not sufficient to submit the registration renewal the day before expiration. It must be at least 30 days. Registration lapses affect the validity of open export licenses and agreements, so registrants must monitor this date carefully. The fee to renew the registration is a tiered system and will depend on the number of license applications or other approvals DDTC processes during the previous year. Applications used to calculate the fee include the DSP applications, agreements, and their amendments. Cases returned without action and denied cases are not included in the fee calculation. Required submissions which do not require a response from the department, such as sales reports, are not counted when determining the registration fee, nor are disclosures or requests for a commodity jurisdiction determination. DDTC will send a written notification of the fee to be paid at least 60 days prior to the expiration date of the current registration. This notification will be addressed to the senior officer and address on the current registration unless a material change has been submitted per ITAR 122.4. If you do not receive a renewal notification, contact the DDTC response team at 202-663-1282 or by email at ddtcresponseteam@state.gov. The registrant is responsible to ensure renewal fees are received prior to the registration expiration date. Notification of changes to information provided on the DS-2032. The ITAR requires registrants to notify DDTC of any changes to the DS-2032 registration statement. When this information must be provided depends on what has changed. 5 days for material changes in the registration statement, including when any relevant persons are indicted or convicted for violating criminal statutes listed in 22 CFR 120.27, or there is a change in eligibility of any person listed in the registration statement. 60 days for any sale or transfer of ownership or control of the registrant to a foreign person. However, any change in corporate structure by merger or acquisition requires a 5-day notification as well. Failure to report changes to the information on the registration statement constitutes a violation of the ITAR. Consult ITAR Section 122.4 for more information. Thank you for watching this segment of our video training series. Viewers are encouraged to seek professional advice prior to assessment, implementation, or execution.